So I just got back from the theater seeing Captain America Brave New World or Captain America 4, whatever floats your boat, really. And I wanted to give my first impressions of the movie, just right out of the theater, immediate reaction to the movie, just because I feel like the positives I do have for this movie could potentially be completely just negated if I think about it way too much. So I just thought I'd give my positives, my negatives, and then just kind of let you guys decide if you want to see the movie or not. But as of right now, I did not think this was that good of a movie. I know a lot of places or a lot of media sites are giving this movie like a 4 or 5, maybe even a 6 out of 10. I think this movie sits around the 5 mark. I would say it's one of the most just whatever movies Marvel has put out. I wouldn't say this movie is as bad as Eternals or Quantumania, but I don't think it's much better than those movies either. So, just starting off, some of the things that I didn't like about this movie, I didn't like that I could tell there was a lot of reshoots. I didn't like that there was so much that felt cut out that it almost made the story feel a little discombobulated, especially towards the middle of the film. There were a couple things that I saw that they inserted into the movie that didn't feel like it belonged, but you could tell they were setting up for Thunderbolts in May, or they didn't really set up Fantastic Four all that much, which comes out in July. But you could tell like there were some implications towards the end credit scene, I would say, for Fantastic Four. Nothing major to make you want to stay though. Like I know, like when you go and see a Marvel movie, you're considered an idiot if you walk out of the theater too early and not watch the after credit scene. I didn't think the after credit scene in this movie was really good at all, to be honest. It felt very reshooty, very shoehorned in. There is no mid credit scene, even though when the credits are going, you can tell there's a pause in the music for a mid credit scene, but then it just goes right back to the credits. It's very like sloppy editing wise. Speaking of sloppy editing, there was another scene in the movie that just kind of irked me a little bit. I don't know if this would be something that is like really a big deal, but there's a part where Captain America, Sam Wilson, is invited to the White House for like a big like party of some sort, and there's a lot of reporters there, a lot of people taking pictures, a lot of like camera flashes happening, and you can tell whatever the editing was for this movie, you can tell that they didn't do good with the camera flashes. The camera flashes weren't coming from multiple sides. It was just a static across the screen over and over. And when you watch the movie, you'll notice it. And it's very distracting because there's a lot of like political talk going on in this scene that you're kind of just like, I would like to hear this, but I'm so distracted by just the terrible editing of it all that it just irritated me and my buddies. So that was just one other thing I didn't really like about the movie. Another thing that I thought was really stiff about this movie was the acting. I thought the acting was very cheesy, very just like typical Marvel, I would say, but like a less gritty when it comes down to it. Like I expect Marvel, like I know Marvel and Disney are very like politically woke and like, they do a lot more like right things to, the right way instead of doing things like the dark way. But there were a lot of moments in this movie that felt like they tried to be dark and they tried to be gritty about stuff, but then the next scene it would just be so cheesy and just so like, why are we doing this in general? Again, I don't want to spoil much, so like a lot of what I'm saying sounds a little vague right now, but like it just felt like things weren't matched up properly in this movie. Like it just felt like the scenes didn't flow the way they were supposed to flow. Didn't feel like the actors were as in it as they potentially could have been. And I think a lot of that had to do with, like I said before, the reshoots. I think a lot of scenes they had to bring people back in, they had to do reshoots, and it kind of just discombobulated the entire movie when it comes down to it. And we've seen this before with movies like The Suicide Squad, for example, the original one, the David Ayer one, David Ayer's one. We heard there were reshoots, and then when you watch the movie, you can tell there were reshoots. And this movie's no different. You could tell there were problems. You could tell there were script problems. You could tell there were so many things so much implications that they wanted to get into this movie that they kind of forgot what the movie was going to be. Another issue I had with this movie was the bad guy. The bad guy. So they bring in Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. He's a cool dude, great guy. But I don't know why he's in the movie. I have no idea why he's in the movie. He's in the movie for the first like 20 minutes and then he gets put in prison and he's gone after that. And then they reveal that there's actually a bigger bad guy out there. And this bigger bad guy, they pulled this bigger bad guy from the original Incredible Hulk movie with, as well as a lot of things in this movie. It almost feels like this movie was meant to be a sequel to the Incredible Hulk. But after the Incredible Hulk happened, they realized how much money it was going to be to make another Hulk movie happen. And they just kind of went off of that and said, let's just make Thor, or something like that. And I feel like a lot of the assets that they were going to use from Incredible Hulk were used in this movie a little bit. And I know that sounds kind of weird to say because like Incredible Hulk was like 2008, but you could like the beginning of the movie, they talk about the Incredible Hulk. Like they talk about like him and Abomination fighting each other. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Thaddeus Ross, William Hurt, who unfortunately has passed away, Harrison Ford took over as this character, and he is Red Hulk technically, but he's the general that was in charge of pretty much taking down the Hulk in the 2008 film. This movie is mostly about him, I would say. It's about him becoming the president of the United States and kind of plotting his own way of making the world a better place. And obviously that better place isn't necessarily a better place. He's technically kind of the bad guy in the movie, even though he's an 84-year-old man that it sometimes seems like he doesn't really know what he's doing a lot of times. And again, that's a big part of like it felt like the movie was just discombobulated at a lot of moments. So, and that's not saying, I think the acting was, from the main characters at least, I think like Anthony Mackie did whatever he could. I think he's a good actor. I think he did a good job, and I don't mind him as Captain America. I think a lot of the scenes with him, he put a lot of heart into, and you can tell he's taking on this mantle and he's actually trying. And I like that a lot. I really enjoyed his performance. Though a lot of his scenes, he was a little cheesy. Just saying, I know Captain America's cheesy normally anyway, but it felt like the script they gave Anthony Mackie was even more cheesy, if that makes sense. Harrison Ford, I thought Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford's connection was really good. I enjoyed them talking to each other, you know, the passive aggressive threatening of each other and stuff. I like that a lot. It's unfortunate that it didn't happen as often as I would want it to. There was obviously the moment where they're sitting in like a bunker and he's like, "You're not Steve Rogers." And it's like, okay, like that's a good scene. It's a really good scene, but like that's really the only major scene that they're in together that was really like combatant, you know, like where they really like went at each other, and that was what fueled those scenes. And that scene was good because of their like good acting with each other, if that makes sense. Other than that, though, I felt like everybody else in this movie fucking sucked. I felt like everybody fucking sucked in this movie pretty much. Like they have like, there's this chick that's like a Secret Service chick who's like the president's like bodyguard. She's technically another Black Widow. She's black. She comes from the Black Widow tree. She's like 4 feet tall. And like you can tell they put her in the movie to like prove a point. You know, it was like just because she's not Scarlett Johansson doesn't mean she can't kick ass. And then she's in one scene where she fights, and it's so ugly. Like the fighting is, you can tell she runs on the wall and puts a guy in a grapple. You know, Black Widow shit, but it just looks bad. It looks like she's not even like properly trained for it. So a lot of this movie felt like it was like they were trying to tell us that you don't have to have a super soldier serum. You don't have to be beautiful. You don't have to be white. You don't have to be this and that to be special. And it's like, I already have accepted Sam Wilson as Captain America. It's a comic book thing. I'm cool with it. It's fine. But then like the Falcon, he's like this like Hispanic dude who's the comic relief in the movie, and he's just not funny. Like he's not funny whatsoever. And they kept on with him sometimes. And it was just like, I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood for this character. I'm not in the mood for whatever the implications are of these characters. It just felt like a lot of the movie was just trying to tell you something that we don't really need to hear in a movie, like a lot of times. And I say that because a lot of the movie's political. A lot of the movie has a lot of implications on the political election, and a lot of like, you know, like Sam Wilson, for example, he's working for Thaddeus. He's working for Thaddeus Ross. And obviously from Civil War, Thaddeus put Captain America and everybody in prison and pretty much tried to denounce them as heroes. Now Sam Wilson's working for him, and everybody's like, "Why are you working for him?" You know what I mean? He put you in prison. But Sam Wilson's like, "I will stand with my president because that's what we do." And it's just like, oh God, I get what the implications are. I understand, but it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Like, it's just not necessary for me. I just don't need it. I just want to see some good action. And for the most part, this movie did have good action. I would say the first fight scene that introduces Captain America, he comes swooping down and he's bouncing the shield off people, and you could tell the punches were hitting people. It was just tough fighting. And then the next fight scene would be like awful. It was just like discombobulated. You could tell like they like just reshot it and it looked ugly, and I didn't understand the point in it. I didn't understand how like they could go from one really nice fight scene to the next, and it's just like so choppy and so bad. For example, there's a part where they're in a laboratory and these dudes with stun guns come out and they start fighting Falcon and Captain America, and the fight was just so slow and just like, how are you losing this fight type of thing. Like, it was like the heroes had to lose the fight to prove a point. And it was just like, I didn't understand it whatsoever. I also don't understand the whole, like, the message they were trying to tell us was that Cap doesn't need to be a super soldier. It's the idea of Captain America. And I respect that. I totally understand it. But let's be real here. Steve Rogers was a beast. He was a beast. He couldn't be stopped. From the second you first saw Captain America in the first Avenger to the second that he finishes off and hands the shield off, he was indestructible practically. Like he never used his body as a weakness. He never was like, oh man, my ribs, they're broken. You know, he never had those moments. And that's because he was a super soldier. And I get that. In this movie, first fight scene of the movie, Sam Wilson's ribs get broken and he's like, throughout the whole movie. Like the whole movie, like he's just got moments where it's like, that hurt. You know what I mean? It's like, I get he's supposed to be like, I'm supposed to relate to him being a normal superhero, but it brings back the whole, you don't have to be a super soldier to be special. Well, you do. You do need to be a super soldier to be fucking special, because Steve Rogers, the only person who made him look like a punk bitch was Thanos, a super fucking monster practically. So like, and that's what I liked about Steve Rogers, like his writing was that it didn't matter how many times he fell down, he always got back up. And it feels like if this Captain America, this Sam Wilson one, takes enough damage, he will time out. Like he'll be like, I can't anymore. I just can't anymore. For example, the fight with Red Hulk towards the end, which again, it was only like a 4-minute scene. It was a good fight. It was a very good fight. But spoiler alert, it ends horribly. It ends dumb. The parts in the midst of it, like, for example, there's a Captain America in this movie, he was given vibranium wings. So that's cool. He takes damage. He uses his wings as like his barrier. He absorbs the damage. And if you know anything about the vibranium stuff from Wakanda, he slams and it just a bubble of energy hits everything around him. That's so sick. I love that. I love that combination of like hero traits. I love that. There's a part towards the end of the movie when he's fighting Red Hulk where Hulk is just beating on his ass and he's just absorbing. And you're like, what's he going to do with this? What's he going to do? And he stabs the Hulk and then he lets out that pulse and it just goes boom and blows up. And you're like, holy shit, that's a really cool way to use that. Both him and Hulk get up after that big explosion and Hulk is ready to start beating his ass again. And Cap goes, stop. This isn't what your daughter would want, General. This isn't what he would want, Ross. And he just turns back into Harrison Ford. He does like the Hulk and Natasha thing where Natasha like would rub his hand and he would go, you're right, I'm not mad. And he would stop being mad. But it didn't make sense in this one because there was a lot of animosity, it felt like, between Captain America and Thaddeus Ross. So it just didn't feel right how they ended the fight. It just didn't make sense. It didn't feel normal to me. It was just like, why? Like, what? Like, he asked him to stop, so he stopped? Like, what? Like, that's just dumb. Especially after the fucking, like, 2-hour buildup to get Red Hulk to even show himself in the movie. And, like, I get it, like, you can't, like, spend all your money on one character, but, like, this movie felt so much like it wanted to be Winter Soldier that it forgot that it was trying to be Winter Soldier at times, and it tried being, like, anything else, it felt like. And it was just like, I don't know. All this movie really did was make me want to watch Winter Soldier because that was actually a competent, you know, big budget, like action espionage type movie. This movie tried to be that, but it also tried to shoehorn a Red Hulk and Captain America fight that only lasted a couple minutes. And if you're going into this for Red Hulk, that's the only scene he's in. So it's like, you're not going to get much out of it. Now, something I did like about this movie, something else I liked before I'm done doing this, I liked all the shit that they pulled back from the old movies. I did like that. There's a lot of talk of the vibranium. There's a lot of talk of Wakanda. There's a lot of talk of the celestial stuff that we saw in the Eternals. There's big plot points. Like, there's big moments, and I like those big moments. I really did like those moments. For example, the celestial that's sitting in the middle of the Indian Ocean that's kind of halfway out of the ground, they have a big fight around that, and I love that fight. I thought it was a really cool fight. I thought it was probably the best scene in the movie besides the Red Hulk fight. I thought it was really cool because you got Falcon and Captain America flying around fighting jets and stuff, and it was really fucking dope, dude. It was really just cool looking. The ways they were taking out the missiles were really cool. I just felt like if they had more scenes like that, I would have been way more invested into this movie. Another thing that I didn't like about the movie was I didn't think the bad guy was good. I thought the bad guy was fucking stupid. I thought it made no sense. He looked like a stalk of broccoli to me. He didn't make any sense. He was another character that was pulled back from the Incredible Hulk movie. I wasn't a fan. He just didn't make any sense to me. Like he's a character that pretty much, like my buddy said, he's always taking the over on every bet. So he's always like, there was an 80% probability that you would be here, Captain America, and I prepared for that. And then he would lose. And then he would lose anyway. And it was just like, okay, like, what's this guy's power? And I understand he's supposed to be like this like scary scientist guy. And that's another reason why I'm thinking, like, if you're going to have like the Hulk or Red Hulk and you're going to have this like super genius scientist, why is Sam Wilson still just a normal dude? And I think, and I'm going to go into a little bit of spoiler territory here. I think there's a scene in this movie that was a reshoot, and it was to help the Thunderbolts movie in May get a little traction. Bucky shows up. He shows up for just a moment, and he's running for Congress, I guess, and he's just kind of like there to give Sam a little bit of like a pep talk in a way. He shows up though, and Sam is pretty much realizing that he's not strong enough to do what Steve Rogers did. He's just not strong enough. He comes to the realization, he's like, look, man, I'm beat up. I've gotten stabbed. I'm fucking tired, and I'm getting fucked up really bad. And you know, Steve chose the wrong guy to give the shield to, is pretty much what he says. And, you know, you got Bucky sitting here going, no, man, you got this. He gave you the shield for a reason. You know, he's being a good friend. And then Sam says what the audience is thinking. And he's like, I should take that serum. I should become a super soldier. I need to. And Bucky's like, no, you don't need it. And right then and there, I'm like, oh God, man, he does need it. He does need it. He absolutely does. He's getting his ass beaten. There's no way he can take on Red Hulk. Even though he does, there's no way he should be able to as a normal man. There's just no way. And I don't care how you spice that up. I don't give a shit, dude, because nobody is going to fight the angriest of angriest Hulks as just a normal dude. And it's not going to be a 4-minute fight. No fucking way. It's just not going to happen. And I think the best thing they could have done here with this movie, I'm tired of watching superhero movies that think that like the audience likes going, yeah, you don't have to be special to be a hero. I don't need that shit, man. I don't need that shit. Little kids don't need that shit. Little kids want to see superheroes. They want to see people that are enhanced. Spider-Man is enhanced. Black Panther, he sucked in that fucking, that chemical shit. He became a fucking monster. Fucking Captain America, serum. Bucky, serum. Iron Man's a fucking superhero, bro. Dude's got a brain that's crazy as fuck, smart as hell, and he can make like energy come out of him. Like that's insane. So like I see these people as superior in a way. They're superior, so they take on the big threats that the United States and the world has. Sam Wilson is just a dude in a suit. And I know that that's the point. I get it. It's like, it's not what defines you, you know, whatever. But he needs that serum. He needs to be a super soldier because at the end of this movie, he's got broken bones. He's got a broken arm. It's like, what if Thanos invades right now? Like, what if Thanos still existed? And what if he invades right this second? You got a broken arm, motherfucker. You can't fight anybody with that broken arm. You can't even hold the shield with a broken arm. What are you going to do? So like the way maybe I'm thinking too deep into that, but it just kind of annoys me. Cause like in the middle of the movie, he should have been like, I'm not strong enough to take on the Hulk, or I'm not strong enough to fight back like Steve used to. And I think Bucky should have said, you should do whatever you think is right. Whatever you have to do, no one will be disappointed in you for being a super soldier. Nobody will care. And I think in that moment, if Bucky was like, you got to do what you got to do, whatever it takes, it would have been something that could draw back from Endgame when Cap is talking to Black Widow and she's like, this is going to work. And Cap says it has to, because if it doesn't, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that would have tied it back together that serum, no serum, doesn't matter. You do what you have to do to defend the world. That's your job as Captain America. You take the blame. You take the brunt of the action. I just thought that would make more sense. And considering like the last Captain America was kind of like just like a whatever it takes kind of guy, I just thought that would make a little more sense for this movie to do. With that being said, though, you would have had to have had Red Hulk become Red Hulk early in the movie, which should have happened, and he should have been the main threat, not a stalk of broccoli. It should have been him as the main threat, in my opinion, to make Sam Wilson realize, I need to be stronger to take on these stronger guys. I'm just a normal guy right now. I need to be more than a normal guy. And I think Sam should have realized, I'm going to become a super soldier. And that midway point is where he just bulks up and becomes just a beast, you know, just a complete beast. Not saying he couldn't do it before, but he can definitely do it now. And I felt like halfway through the movie, he should have realized, I'm going to become a super soldier. Like, I probably should. I get that takes away the implication of not being special anymore, but like, I'm sorry, like the guy's too weak to fight these things. I don't care who you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what you are. You're not going to fight a Hulk as a normal man. It's just not going to happen. It's not. All in all, though, I didn't think this was like the worst MCU movie I've ever seen. I do think there's a lot of implications. So I think people are going to watch this and there's going to be a lot of like stuff leading into the next movies. They definitely did a lot of like talk about like, they definitely tried to like do the after credit scene and like kind of, you know, push in the whole Fantastic Four. I think that's who they were implying about. When it comes down to it, I didn't think this was that great of a movie. I just think this was a really fun movie to like sit with the boys and just kind of laugh at sometimes, because there were some scenes that were just kind of goofy. But all in all, I didn't hate the movie. I just wouldn't spend money on it again. So if you get a chance to watch this movie on TV, I would do that. If you're really deep into it and you really need to see the next MCU thing, I think you can wait. Personally, I don't think there's anything that's going to be like, oh my God, spoiler. You know, I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I do think that this movie was kind of overhated in some ways, but I also understand the hate. It's justified in a way. I don't think the acting was abysmal, but I don't think that the movie was all that good altogether. Pacing sucked. Some of the scenes were bad. A couple of good fight scenes, but all in all, I felt like 2 hours I could have probably saved. To be honest with you, a couple bucks I could have saved as well. But let me know what you guys thought of it. If you saw it, let me know what you think. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did I sway your opinion at all? Either way, this was just a quick, just 20-minute like sit down talk about the movie, my first impressions of it. I think it could have been a lot better, but I also think it could have been a whole fucking lot worse. But with that being said, thanks for watching. Bye.